Joining us now with more on what a Trump presidency could bring to us here on our side of the border, as well as the U.S. over the next 4 years, is John Micek, political editor at masslive.com. John, thanks so much for being with us today. A big day in the U.S. I'm sure you've been watching it closely. I wonder what your takeaways are so far.
Good afternoon. A pretty extraordinary speech by any measure. One that was pretty markedly political. Just in this, in the lead up to this segment, we heard the reaction from your officials on there. Normally, inaugural speeches are forward-looking. They're vision speeches. They are not necessarily political speeches, but we heard now President Trump saying that, railing against political enemies, railing against corruption in the government, railing against what he called the weaponization of the U.S. Justice Department, talking about taking back the Panama Canal, though he did not exactly say how he intended to do that. The border measures he intends to deploy, nods to his base. Again, an unusual candidate, an unusual president, and definitely an unusual speech.
Yeah, definitely. And, just moments ago, he wrapped up what sounds like a second speech that he was making. He was actually just greeting people who were there for the inauguration and just went on for some time and mentioning a number of things we've heard about, very familiar with, things like rigged election. He was talking about the wall once again. He even talked about Hillary Clinton, his former opponent, saying she didn't look very happy today. I wonder what that says to you about him bringing up those old arguments that are obviously still top of mind for him.
During the campaign, Trump ran on talk of retribution against political enemies. He said, I will be your vengeance," he said to his supporters. So it was pretty striking that we saw just before him taking the rostrum, President Biden issuing preemptive pardons to members of his own family because he feared persecution there. He offered preemptive pardons to people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, the head of the U.S.'s COVID-19 response during the pandemic era, to General Mark Milley, who was the chairperson of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I think that, explains why. This is still a president who, in a lot of ways, is still hung up on the loss in 2020, still feels wounded or persecuted by the previous administration, and was venting about that. Again, normally when presidents come in, they start looking forward. President Trump is a candidate and a president who looks backward in a lot of ways.
And, what's interesting, too, is there just seems to be this kind of divide. Some people say take Trump by his word. Some people say don't. Well, we're about to see some action from him. Yesterday he said he could be signing close to 100 executive orders. I wonder what those first executive orders might say to you about what we could expect for the next 4 years.
Well, we know that Trump is a disruptor by nature. And we know that a lot of these early executive orders are going to focus on immigration matters. He hinted at one that would redefine genders as simply male and female as a matter of U.S. government policy. He's talked about reining in the U.S. civil service. I think what we're going to see here over the next days and weeks is sort of political ambitions and executive ambitions colliding with political and legal reality. These executive actions and executive orders are almost certainly going to be litigated because there are statutory and constitutional issues at play. So I think the president is now going to find the difference between sort of vision and action being challenged.
And John, really quickly, what the reports are right now is that we aren't expecting to see those tariffs on Canadian goods being imposed straight away. What does that perhaps break, that pause, tell you?
I think just stay tuned for Canadians. It's probably not a matter of if they're going to come, but whether and in what form they're going to come.
All right, we're about 2 hours into Trump presidency #2. Thanks so much for weighing in on that. That's John Micek, political editor at masslive.com. Appreciate it, John.